Coming to you from Little Rock, Arkansas, welcome to Sips on the Rock with Legacy Wine and Spirits. Join hosts and store owners Johnny Akins and David Bevins, along with product expert extraordinaire Jake Dell, as we chat about booze, news, and other happenings in the wide world of wine and spirits. Now, let's get to sipping.
Hello. Welcome back for another edition of Sips on the Rock.
Glad to be back.
Hello.
Right on. We've got James again with us today. We are minus Johnny today. And we are recording on a Wednesday. That means absolutely nothing to y'all, but
but it's all sorts of crazy chaos for us.
We have to keep our lovely producers on their toes.
Well, I told everyone this morning when I came in, look sharp, it's Wine Wednesday. And they were like, oh, okay. But everyone stood up a little straighter.
Nice. Well, speaking of Wine Wednesday, you know, we, Jake and I have a tendency to lean towards beer talk, but, you know, we also do love our vino. Last night we had a somewhat impromptu tasting. It wasn't on a Wine Wednesday as per usual, but we had Jean Baptiste in last night.
Jean
Baptiste. I mean, you literally could not get any more French than that name.
Unless your name was Francois.
Francois, that's true.
He literally couldn't speak very much English either. Yeah. I found out after I spoke with him, I'm not sure he understood that
Just
much.
Stand
either.
there and nod.
We both did quite a bit of that.
Slight language barrier, but absolutely tremendous wines. We are talking Burgundy.
I was going to say, don't get me started, but I guess that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, get you revved up and let you go.
This 100%. Is one of, you know, David, I told you this yesterday, and that I said, you know, I don't tell everyone my dreams, but I have this recurring dream where I wake up that I'm in Burgundy, and then when I wake up and I'm not, I say something to myself that I won't say on this podcast. But I love the area so much, and I love the history about it. And, you know, you take our Pinot Noir wall full of wines that people grab them as fast as they can. They go flying out of the store. But few of those people realize the provenance and the history of where that grape and that wine came from. The same thing with Chardonnay, the number one white wine. People don't understand oftentimes that those both came from Burgundy, and those are the great wines of Burgundy. And I tell some folks, you know, when you spill that red wine on the tablecloth and call it, oh no, it's, you know, well, that's actually the Burgundy color came from the fact that people were spilling wine on their tablecloths.
That's great.
From that. So it was great to have him in. I've gotten to spend some time in Burgundy on a couple of occasions, and they are down in Chardonnay, which is on the southern end of the kind of the tip of that before it becomes the Mécanais and where Puy Frisé comes from, and on farther down Beaujolais. But they're in some of the very best of it for sure. And he is sixth generation Jean Baptiste.
Pretty young guy, right?
I thought he was looking good to be 150 years old or whatever I had at first thought he might be. You know, our friend Kenneth Lipsmeyer was actually there at their winery yesterday.
Crazy.
And they had communicated that to him. And he asked me, do you know this Mr. Lipsmeyer? I said, yeah, there are things I can't say, but I do know him. And he was in the chateau today. My brother called.
Wow.
There, that's my French accent. That was not so good. But just goes to show you, Kenneth doesn't waste time and effort going to places that aren't the greatest in the world.
Right.
And that's
I also saw he was at Chateau de Kim. Posting on Facebook. Like, what a lucky dog.
To my point, there you go. But, you know, even when you hear, or if you should read about, if you're geeky at all about wine and you like Pinot Noir, you like Chardonnay, you won't get very far in their tasting notes before they're going to tell you what kind of clone they're using in their vineyards and what their wine is made from for the good ones. So often you hear of the Pommard clone for Pinot Noirs that they're using, or you hear of the Dijon clone for the Chardonnays. This is where those came from. I'm not kidding. I'm sorry I get excited about it, but these vineyard areas and all these were planted over 1,000 years ago, and literally our winemakers here, when it was not legal to do so, snuck over there. It was sort of like in the dead of night things. They would take cuttings off of grapevines.
Yeah.
And I've seen cartoons where they were in trench coats and, with the hat on, the secret agent hat, and with cuttings of grapevines sticking out of their jackets But that's sort of what happened. And that's where all those great Pinot Noirs that we love in Oregon and California, so many of those really got their start right in the soil where these wines were grown. And I'm going to make it a point when folks come in and they're talking about and asking about these wines, I may start to take them there first instead of to the other walls, simply because so many don't know that, this is where it started, right here in Burgundy. And then when they look at them, is it just me, or are these bottles as elegant as you can get? I was thinking,
they're beautiful.
Last night when he was pouring them and talking about them, and since I couldn't really understand what he was saying, my mind wandered. And I thought, what if you were in a restaurant and these were on the table? Or what if you were having dinner in your home and this bottle was on the table? What looks more elegant than this?
Right.
Not much. These say it all.
Versus something from California that has a cartoon animal on there or whatever.
Listen,
something that's trying to grab you off the shelf just based on what it looks like versus what's actually in the bottle.
And listen, cartoon animals are normally fine with me. But there is something about 6 generations of winemakers on the same soil. Not far from there, in the vineyard is a tribute or a statue to King or Emperor Charlemagne. And he was crowned in 800, and the vineyards had already been planted prior to that.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So this is an area that, tell you, if you go to France, it's a nice side trip to just get on the bullet train and go to Beaune. Really, it takes you to Lyon, but a short trip from there on a different train to Beaune. And that is the center of Burgundy and its winemaking, and just some of the most wonderful medieval villages along the way that all have fantastic vineyards around and behind them. I shouldn't tell you that I did once foul up at the airport in France or in Paris and bought a ticket.
I was wondering if you were going to tell this story.
From Paris, not to Beaune, France, but to Bonn, Germany, which
slightly different.
I was going to say hilarity ensued, to say the least. But there's nothing wrong with. I've decided getting lost and going the wrong way for a little bit before you get turned around, going the right way. At least if you're in the kind of place where you want to see it anyway. So these are wonderful wines to have on the shelf and in the store. I realized those Pinot Noirs last night were as wonderful as anything I had had in a long time. And Chardonnay that tastes like Chardonnay is supposed to taste like.
I almost said earlier when you were talking about taking people to that section before the California, you get to see a purer expression of what it's, quote unquote, supposed to be, because it was the first, it's the original. And if you're used to drinking Pinot Noir that has a lot of Syrah in there to up the body, or some Chardonnay that's seen so much oak, you start thinking that, well, that's what it's supposed to taste like. And then you venture into France, you're like, well, this is different. But I don't, Americans haven't bastardized Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, but we've taken some liberties,
to say the least.
Yeah,
I don't know that first statement may be the one.
Some producers, sure, other producers,
but certainly not all of them. But I think we're thinking of a couple or a few that certainly have done that.
Yeah.
Well, I feel that way. These these wines are a beautiful expression of the grape and what it is supposed to taste like. You know, the Pinot Noir grape in this area, and well, in any area, but first here because that's where it was planted in Burgundy, it mutates and it just does it on its own. And it will throw off a tendril or a shoot that the leaves and the grapes are a grayish or really more of a copper color. And they didn't want that to be in the vineyard. They would clip that off, but they would take it to a different vineyard or different block or part of a vineyard, plant it, and that's where Pinot Gris comes from. Once they propagate that, and the same thing for Pinot Blanc, it will send out. It just will do that. Just the climate doing strange things can cause it to mutate and make different grapes that are so popular now that they at the time were just clipping them off and get this out.
Get out of here.
What is this trash?
Yeah.
Wow. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, some of the things I liked about these wines and this winery in particular, one was the history. You know, it's a sixth generation, as James said, and really, really lucky to have these in Arkansas. What I was told last night, straight from the horse's mouth, this is available in only 3 states. It's Florida, New York, and Arkansas.
Not many things we can say that about.
No,
Well,
I mean, that's kind of mind-blowing.
The size of these vineyards, the amount of hectares that they have under vine and what they can do, they can literally do no more. And there's not room for them to grow without becoming a negociant and buying grapes on the market. But to do what they do and to be estate-grown and bottled, there's just no way they can, there are a couple of states that they could go in and all of the juice would disappear immediately. Right. They're just too big. So we are fortunate in that regard.
Very fortunate. So you need to come and try these out because they are spectacular. And, they're not all super high end, we're like $40 on up, they get pretty pricey for some of the crews, but the grain crews. But
but that's just it. We do have those. We have a couple of very good premier crews on the shelf, and then we have a couple of the big gun grand crews. When someone wants something very special or for a very special gift. But I'll tell you, as impressive as those were, these two that are just commune wines that are labeled Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, those are fantastic. And I would pit them against anything. And I don't know that I always thought, music contests and band contests and things like that seems wrong. What sort of seems wrong with putting wines like this against, one country against another. But I have already done it in my head, so I know which one I'm likely to drink next. I liked both of those very well.
Yeah.
And I'm anxious to show them off.
You just mentioned music. Another thing I learned last night was they play Mozart in the down in the cellar while these wines are aging. So
I did not hear him say that, but I love that because I have a classical music education, so I love Mozart anyway. But so that's like people that do that with their unborn children. They listen to classical music. Oh, it's going to make me cry.
I love that. It's a slightly different application because you're not just trying to vibrate the fetus at a certain frequency.
No, it soothes the tannins, he was saying.
But can't you, and don't they have where you can go online and see the playlists that they're playing? I think that was part of it.
I think that was a whiskey.
Well, yeah, but I think same thing. If I went, because I heard the whole story before these launched, when we got to taste through them a month or two ago, maybe 2 months ago, and I think you can go on there and see exactly what Mozart is playing for each wine.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, they say that he was saying that it allows the tannins to dance on your tongue.
Oh, only he did it with a thick French accent.
The thickest.
Well, I will be interested to hear Kenneth Lipsmeier's view of actually being there and being in the cellar and and all of that, which his French accent is not so thick. I can understand him better. I think he'll relay information that I maybe didn't get yesterday. But certainly fantastic estate and just something that you don't see in our state very often. These are wonderful wines to have in the store.
Yeah, well, we mentioned Francois earlier. He's the owner of one of these smaller boutique wine importers and distributor, and we certainly here at Legacy do all we can to support his line of wines. So he can bring in more of these fantastic, hard to come by things.
And their portfolio is heavily French centric and Italian and South America. And they're not really doing too many mass produce, American Californian wines. And we appreciate all the support that they put behind their brands. And then we get jewels like this because of that and their size and the commitment they have to their brands.
This is the kind of wine that the large distributors I won't just say won't do, but they can't.
Right.
They really are not in the position that Francois and Patrick and those folks are. I appreciate what they're doing for sure. And because of that, not only can you not get these in other states, but you can't find these in very many other stores and certainly not in grocery outlets and things like that. But that's so nice to walk in and see these on the shelf.
It really is something special.
Why I'm in the wine business, what I love about it. So I'm anxious for folks to come in where we can talk about it one-on-one down on the sales floor, because these are trying to say things and not use profanity.
Darn good.
Darn good.
These are darn good.
Gosh,
everyone.
darn good wines.
Yeah, so those of you interested in broadening your palate, go for some old world. Like they said, this is the origins of these grapes, where they actually were developed and, spread across the world. And I loved it. I love the image of, someone sneaking the clippings in their overcoat.
Trench coat. Yeah. You want to see what I got? Yeah, I got the good stuff. Straight from France.
Well, I met the owner of the Arrowwood Winery in California, and they're also Pine Ridge. And he is one of those people that has been blamed for doing that. And I think even talked about it a little bit, flying back on the plane with plants in his pockets. You can't get away with that stuff much anymore.
No, they want you to disclose if you've been to a farm, if you're carrying any livestock produce, anything like that. So,
unpasteurized cheese.
Right.
I just say yes to everything. Yes, I've been there. I'm carrying that. Is it okay? It's in my carry-on. Okay, I tell you, I do have a buddy that teaches cheese courses on occasion. You both know this fellow, but I've traveled quite a bit with him, and he brought back some of the stinkiest cheese on a trip one time that, even though it was packaged and rewrapped, it was one of those things where under the seat in front of him on the plane, when he would shift and kick it, people would turn and look both ways. And I just remember I finally got to the point where that would happen. I would just point, that is not me. But that I don't, for some reason that makes me think of classic meals. But I've talked to people even just last night that, we're going to make this and this for dinner. What would be the wine that would go with this? Well, can you imagine a classic dish of some kind, and not some new California cuisine or something, but something that coq au vin or even just a good piece of beef. This is a classic pairing. Mm-hmm. All of these wines are meant to go with the very best of foods. So if you're a little worried about your recipe and how it may turn out,
you can supplement.
Maybe this will. No one will. They'll overlook your shortcomings if this is on the table.
Right, just open another bottle.
In fact, I have. I was going to say, I think I now have a plan for my next dinner party.
Well, and back to the label, he told me I learned so much in my few minutes I was spending down there. One thing, the introductory level on these, they are labeled Pinot Noir and Chard. So, that's a little bit of a helpful tidbit when you're running down the French aisle. But also, of course, it's a modernized label, but, 6 generations they've been producing wine a long time.
Classic yet modern.
This is the original script, that were on the old bottles.
Mm-hmm.
You don't say font because they didn't call it font back then, I don't think. But it's updated with the little initials there with his logo. So if your initials are JB, look at that.
Look at that selling point.
Put that on your
there
table.
You have it. Yeah. Yes. Someone named JB whose birthday is coming up.
All right. Actually, that is my first name is JB.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
JB is my initial set. So
makes sense.
What I present you with.
Yeah, I know what I'm getting you.
Jean Baptiste. He inherited this. I mean, what a hell of an inheritance,
Yes, I keep waiting on something myself, and it's not been forthcoming. So I'm glad that I made friends with him, because whether he realizes it or not, I made him commit to allowing me to stay with them in a couple of years, and I'm going to take what he mumbled back and how he looked as a tacit yes from him. So
hell yeah,
we'll
all go.
And to just geek out a little bit on science, a lot of what we know about grapes and vineyards today come from that area, not just these grapes, but the fact that so many monasteries were in the area that grew grapes along the Côte d'Or, or the Golden Slope, where that is the hillside that all these are on. Those people took meticulous notes of climate conditions, and vineyard conditions, amounts of rainfall, temperature, going back 1,000 years.
The original Farmer's Almanac.
Right, exactly. And literally, you can look at all of that data and realize what was going on, and then you come to the 1980s, and it all just goes haywire from there. But how steady the rise and flow of temperatures and all that were, we know that thanks to the people that were on these vineyards.
Wow.
That's really cool.
Tremendous knowledge there. That's incredible. Just think of the history, something old here in the States, 100 years.
Right. A couple hundred years.
Jean Baptiste is doing a couple of events with Francois and Patrick. To be honest, I don't know their
whereabouts.
There's a tasting bar in Hot Springs called Splash, I think.
They did mention going to Hot Springs.
I imagine you can find out on the Vino of Arkansas Facebook page.
Please, I wasn't sure if I needed to say that or not, but it would be well worth going just to try the wines.
Yeah.
Even if you can't understand every word that Francois says to you. Although I have friends that speak pretty good French that would have enjoyed conversing with him. I'm just not one of those people.
Right.
Well, we're actually going to be getting him back into the store on a Thursday night. I'm not sure which Thursday. We're supposed to be kept abreast of that.
Next week or something? Is that...
I don't know. We need to get with Patrick and find out.
I know if you meant 6 months from
what
now
he was talking about. But yeah, we'll definitely give y'all some more of a heads up for this next time he'll be in the store.
We're going to have something that I don't think is quite put together yet, coming up in April, when a winemaker, it's the Broussard people, is that how they say that? I think they're in southwestern France, and it's more, they make wines out of a grape that I just really like called Tannat.
Oh yeah,
and we have a couple of those in the store.
Yeah,
but
they're few and far between.
Patrick was telling me that he is going to have him in the store.
Okay,
and we'll do our best to make a big splash out of that.
Yeah,
so everyone knows about it and can come in and meet him too, because that's another side of France from these. But once again, try these wines, because really these are the basis for some of the things that you drink all the time now. So I'm going to look forward to that for sure.
Yeah, that's great. And also, they have a vineyard dog, a Weimaraner named George.
All sorts of little tidbits.
You got to love a vineyard dog.
Vineyard dogs
what a life.
Are good luck. We have a wine in the store from Oregon that has a vineyard dog that also digs truffles. And they produce truffles on some of their trees there. And the little
Left Coast
cellars.
Yeah.
And, you know, the little dog gets a little piece of a hot dog for digging up a truffle, which I always thought I don't know. Yeah, there's someone needs to investigate that. But he seemed happy. He was sure wagging his tail. But
awesome.
yeah,
dogs are the pigs sniffing out.
Well,
truffles.
it's both. I have heard, in fact, I heard it from the fellow who was telling me, the guy that owned this dog, that the dogs you can train not to eat the truffle, but the pig, it's hard to get them not to eat it.
They don't follow rules.
I would have been one of the pigs. In fact, there's a photograph of me shaving a black truffle over my French quarter pounder with a pocket knife.
A Royale with cheese?
A Royale with cheese. Interestingly enough, a pocket knife that they never took off of me in all the airports that I'd gone through to get there.
Huh.
So I guess I just don't look scary enough.
Yeah.
Something.
He's not a threat. Let him go. He said yes to everything. Oh, whatever.
It's like that champagne saver. We know it doesn't have a real edge on it.
Yeah.
Perhaps that was pre 9/11.
I'm sure.
Crackdown.
I'm sure.
No, this is about 3 years ago. It was actually a little kit. It had 2 knife blades on it, but also a fork and a spoon, all that worked like a pocket knife. And I guess they just...
He's good.
And really, when I looked at it, I thought, if I ever have to use this as a weapon, it's probably the fork that I'm going to use.
Yeah.
I'm looking.
The knife is a rounded.
I would say these knives don't look. They look more like cheese than butter knives. So
we were somewhere it was either Greece or Italy. I don't know, when we were trying to bring back some olive oil or something.
Oh boy,
too much liquid.
Had to throw it out. Yeah.
Chug it in the airport.
Right. I forget what the product was, but obviously something that was very special.
Way pre 9/11, I came back with a suitcase full, and literally I got back in the airport. This was in Germany, and saw wines that I'd been looking for in the previous 3 weeks in the duty free shop.
Yeah.
And I started just taking clothes out of my suitcase. I tried to give a sweater away to a guy. He was like, no, I don't, thank you. But so I just left it on the bench in the airport, all this stuff. And I bought more wines, and I came back. First off, before I even got on the plane, I had pulled the handle off the piece of luggage.
Oh, no.
And when I finally got back to New York, these 2 guys just looked at me and just shook their heads. He goes, I'm going to let you go on through here just because I know you have to drag this all the way through the airport.
Carrying it at the bottom.
I did, and I drank on those wines for 30 years or so, I think.
Nice. Jeez.
But you can't do any of that anymore. Yeah. All the fun is over as far as that. But you can travel, and I suggest that if you are going to France, please go to Burgundy. It's one of those trips that you'll never forget.
I would love to. France is one of the countries I've yet to make it to, so it's definitely on my list.
It's a short hop from there up to the Champagne area too. It's like an hour drive, hour and a half.
Yeah. So
you can do all that in one trip.
I mean, I could just die happy in Champagne.
I like to say they love me there.
Definitely. Let's see, what else? Anything? So, speaking of items available in duty free, we read this a couple of some months ago. I don't know, but Blanton's Gold has made it into the United States market. Previously, only available outside of the U.S.
Yeah.
We'll see,
who knows why? Maybe they're throwing us a bone. It's like Arkansas doesn't get anything. Give them a little Blanton's
curious,
Gold.
though. Yeah, when I read it, I was like, well, surely Arkansas is not going to get it.
Right.
But we did. And
we may or may not have some for the whiskey lottery.
Right. Yeah. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
Well, that's a big deal. Arkansas is such a if you're thinking about liquor, a bourbon-centric kind of state.
Yeah.
We've always been that, and we've always been one of the leading states in the consumption of bourbon. And yet some of those things like that, they get away from us.
Pass right over us.
It helps them to sell it, though, in other markets where bourbon is not so important.
Right.
But let me tell you, it's important here. For every wine customer I talk to, I also talk to someone about bourbon. That's just how many people are walking in the door buying bourbons, looking for.
That's why we expanded our bourbon section.
100%. Bourbon is always been popular.
There. Yeah,
but very hot right now in particular.
So hot.
And, I'm curious. Back to the Blanton's Gold. Everyone is always got their eye out. We get calls all throughout the year for the Hennessy White, which another item that's only in duty free, only outside of the States. And what I've heard is that it's not up to par with the American palate, is why it's not ever been available here. So I'm wondering if that's
the sophisticated American palate.
Right. So,
yes,
we'll see about that Blanton's Gold.
Who knows what other treasures we'll get throughout the year?
It's always a mystery.
Yeah, we never know until it walks in the door.
That Hennessy, I have been to the cognac region, and of course, all of the cognacs start out as that. And I don't know this, but I feel like that has to be a more raw kind of taste and spirit than finished cognac. The reason it's brown, it's not because they've added caramel coloring. It's been in the barrel,
right?
Which has mellowed it and taken the sharp edges off of it. So I've wondered about that too. I'm going to read up on that just to see.
Because it still has some color. It's not like you look at it like White Dog, Moonshine,
Okay, we see. I don't know other than people ask.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I've seen it. I haven't had it myself. It's got some color. It's not, the rich mahogany of regular Hennessy. But so maybe it's...
You're too young to remember Ricardo Montalban, who used to do the car commercial, and he talked about rich Corinthian leather.
Yeah.
You have that going. You should be doing ads. I guess you are. I guess this is us.
Yeah.
It's our lives. Our life is one big ad. One big sales pitch. Well, we have actually surpassed our time today, gentlemen.
Wow.
Can I just thank you for something?
What's that?
I got to work here during the Arkansas-Kansas game the other day, and to be able to experience watching it on the television in this store, is that 20? How large is that?
He's referring to our Legatron downstairs. It's huge.
The giant TV wall. Yeah.
How
big is it?
20 feet
long.
Well, yeah. I'm going to invite my friends over this next weekend.
Bring some folding chairs.
I was going to say, because I tell you, folks that came in just stayed.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
They made their purchase and then they stood there and watched it with us. And we were all high-fiving each other. And
what a game to watch on the Legatron.
So I told several people, I work here just for the Legatron.
Well, and speaking of Arkansas,
it's great for
games,
morale. As long as the Hogs win.
Jake had a show scheduled for tomorrow, but canceled it.
Postponed.
Yeah.
So I reminded them, I was like, you have me starting 15 minutes before this, the most important game of the year. Like, ooh, yeah, we hadn't maybe thought about that. So let's go ahead and cancel that. I'm like, I don't want to be playing in a bar where everybody wants me to shut up, I can't hear the game, much less the selfish reason of me maybe having to squint, and watch it while I'm playing, like for a TV at the back of the room or something.
Well, you'll keep us abreast of your your rescheduling dates.
Yeah.
It's a great show. And this is not Two Shot, right?
No, this is Juicebox Jake. Yeah, in the
damn
flesh.
Good show.
In the flesh.
All right, folks. Well, we have now we're way past our time.
Oh my gosh.
So I know, right? What's time anyway?
Well, thanks, James.
Yeah,
my pleasure. This is fun.
Dropping some knowledge on us. Y'all get your tails in here and buy up some of this delicious wine. expand your palate. We've thrown out tons of tidbits. You can, sound well educated while you're pouring this.
Just to say, this afternoon there will be a tasting as with one of our best distributors. In fact, the people we've been talking about, Vino, with some different wines. But we also have wines on our own tasting bar too. In fact, some good ones that unfortunately you can't probably. The law won't allow to try them, everything that we have, but we can pick and choose. Well, I don't know. Has that changed?
We have gotten that law passed.
Is it official
It's yet
yet?
to go into effect. It'll be like 90 days after the adjournment.
So very soon.
Well,
you'll be able to-
hallelujah.
Yeah. You'll be able to
hat
try
is
more
off
than a
to you,
thimble full
Chris.
of 3 wines.
Outstanding. Well, but you can pick between what we have ready to go, 3 really nice things
Right.
to try that you probably have not ever tried before.
Yeah.
So come in and do that.
Do it.
All right.
All right. Well,
Thanks,
again
folks.
for joining us.
Thanks,
Y'all,
fellas.
thanks for joining us. And we will see y'all next week. Keep on
Outstanding.
sipping.
Remember to subscribe to our podcast, Sips on the Rock, and like us on all the socials to keep up with what's new in the wide world of alcohol. Shop LegacyLR.com for curbside pickup or local delivery. Remember, for better service and better selection, shop local. Please enjoy responsibly. Cheers.